Welcome to the Trigger Warning Talk podcast, where we have uncensored conversations, we exchange information, and we provide resources to all the listeners of this podcast that's streaming worldwide, all the major podcast platforms. That's right, I said worldwide. We absolutely thank you for giving us your ear, giving us your eyes, because you can also watch these interviews in two places, Spotify, and that's the free version. You don't have to pay for it, as well as our YouTube channel, which is Penton Consulting Solutions LLC. The name of our company. We have our collaborator, our partner, friend, Simone Nofel, the Applied Epigeneticist, the Healy expert. Hey, we're going to live off the grid in this RV, our LGBTQ partner, just mommy extraordinaire, digital content creator, because we just talked about how she's going to give me some lessons on not being a dinosaur when it comes to all the social media stuff or whatever. Just everything, every woman, it's all in her. Anything that you want done, baby, she does it naturally. You know what I'm saying? That's your theme song.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, you got me in your back pocket now, so I'll definitely help you out.
I'm telling you, we are taking the gloves off today for this part 4 because I told Simone that I want her to talk about stuff that she either feels like she wants to say but has not said. Nobody's giving her a platform to say it. And we're going to really deep dive into this stuff because this is part 4 in our Ancestral and Generational Trauma segment. And we're going to be focusing on the modalities. But also, I'm going to sit back and I want Simone to really talk about things that are concerning ancestral and generational traumas that we haven't discussed. Part 1, part 2, which was the tutorial. Part 1 was her story. And, part 3, Simone, the mic is yours, queen. You go ahead and go for these next 40 plus minutes. I got some questions that I'll sprinkle in here and there. And we got, of course, our missing person case that I'll bring up in case you don't have to stay on for that part. But I'm just saying, you go ahead and do what you do best. The mic is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, LP. It's always such a delight to chat with you. And yeah, it's interesting because I was just at a weekend-long wellness festival.
I saw that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was an experience that I've never felt before within the Black community. Mm-hmm. So big shout out right here to Live Alkaline Water. They're based in North Carolina and they have amazing initiatives.
Where?
What'd you say?
Where in North Carolina?
Yakinville.
How close is that to Charlotte?
I know it's like an hour from Charlotte, an hour from Greensboro. I don't know where those two are in relation
to. About an hour from, because I'm in Concord, which is about an hour south of Greensboro. So.
I should have invited you. I totally didn't.
Man, I wish I would. Yeah.
Okay, so. Yeah, we'll have to connect, and we'll definitely be back at that festival again next year because it was just so beautiful to see a bunch of Black and brown people coming together in the name of holistic health. And there were so many vendors, selling crystals and, a lot of the things that I'm just really into that typically in the spaces that I'm in is predominantly white. Okay. And so to see all of my sisters and brothers out there doing their thing, there was rappers, artists, poets who were sharing their gifts. And so you can head over to Live Alkaline NC. You can head over to the Alkaline Festival, those two on Instagram, and you can see what we had going on this past weekend, or just my Instagram. I shared a lot too. Because one of their initiatives is called Hydrate the Hood, right? And so this program brings this live, clean, natural water from their land in Yakinville, North Carolina, and they distribute it throughout the state. And they even have a distributor in Philadelphia, here in Georgia as well. And so the more people who can know about this, the better, so that we can start hydrating, lower income families who might not have access to actual, good for you water. Because unfortunately, a lot of bottled water is shit. It's just tap water, really. And so you're drinking all those chemicals, all the things that are in our water. So if you can find a source that is natural spring water, that is always the best. And of course, to support this Black-owned initiative. It's the most beautiful thing ever. Soul Society, they are also a part of the bigger vision that was going on this weekend. And so just connect in. I can share those links with you too, LP, so you can post them to this. But yeah, so, being there, being amongst our people, everybody sharing their wisdom and their gifts. it was so beautiful, because that's what this is all about, right? Like, we're on part 4 of this series, and what was going on this past weekend was that we were all there healing our trauma, whether or not we even realized it. Some people might have been subconscious, but just to be there, to be learning about earth-based practices, eating from the land, learning how to grow fruits and vegetables, and teaching these young Black men and young Black women how to do that also, and children. Like, there's so many different programs and people who are pouring into this, that we're on that path, like on a collective healing journey, and so I think it's just something beautiful. Definitely, you guys, seriously, if there's anything to take away from this episode, go check them out and see how you can support them, see how you can get the water to where you live. If there's communities that you support and you can figure out how to link together, do that also.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially because you're so close. You'll definitely be able to link up with them.
We're going to open the floodgates, because I retitled this Ancestral and Generational Trauma Blunt Honest Thoughts. And I used to say brutal honest, but we had a conversation in the men's room in Clubhouse some months ago and talked about how brutal honesty should not be used, should be blunt honesty. And we kind of went, it was all day, it was like and women were in the room, but and this room is called The Address, and it's moderated by 3 guys who were the icons in Clubhouse last year, and they have mental health professionals come in their room also, but it's basically like a barbershop talk room. All the men are on stage from 2 to at least 8 p.m. Eastern time, and then they bring the women up, and then they speak until they decide to close the room up. Sometimes they will go all the way to midnight Eastern. And the chat is just bananas. I mean, it'll be like 600 people in that room. It might be 30 guys on the stage, and women are in there. Like, it might be a total almost over 2,000 chat, messages, going back and forth. And so I wanted to talk to you about your thoughts about these ancestral and generational traumas that we haven't discussed in parts 1 through 3. What have you not said that you want to talk about and say when it comes to that? Mike is yours.
Okay. Ooh, blunt honesty. I feel like I might have mentioned this maybe in part 2, but definitely we didn't dive deep into it. But this is always one of my first go-tos when I'm talking about this topic of ancestral and generational trauma, and that is radical self-responsibility.
What does that mean to you?
Okay, to me that means no more blame games, no more pointing fingers, that everything that is in my reality, I am taking responsibility of, meaning that I know that all the past choices in my life led me to where I'm currently at, and where I'm going in the future are the sum of the choices that I'm making right now. And why I'm referring to that when it comes to ancestral and generational trauma is because sometimes we can get stuck in these thought circles, these thought cycles of, I couldn't control it because the white man did this hundreds of years ago. Oh, I can't control it. That's just the way it is. Blah, 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 blah. And so in that, it leaves us stuck. That's the only thing that it does for us, is leave us stuck. Or if we're just sitting there waiting for reparations, waiting for land back, okay, but what happens if that never happens? Are we just going to still be stuck? So what can we do? What choices can we make to just even shift the needle a little bit, right? It's not like you have to go from 0 to 100 overnight, but just every time we can peel back that layer within ourselves and think of, how can I do for myself? And of course, I believe in community. I believe in family. I believe in community. I believe that humans are pack animals. We're not meant to be lone wolves. However, there is still this aspect of self-responsibility. So yeah, that's really what I mean.
I'm so glad that we're talking today. I don't know if you've seen this viral video that's going around about the race brawl that happened in Montgomery, Alabama.
No, I didn't see it. Mm-mm.
Let me see if I can pull it up here from my page, because I commented about it this morning, and let's see if I and pull it up real quick. Let me share the screen real quick. Actually, that video is there. The black man who was initially attacked, apparently he was a security guard at this riverboat cruise that they have set up in Montgomery, Alabama. Apparently there was a verbal altercation between him and one of the patrons, and in the video you see him take his hat off and kind of throw it in the air like, okay, it's on now. And it was a one-on-one initially between this white patron and this black security guard. And then two other white people came and attacked the guy. It just became this big brawl, a big race brawl, because all the black people that were there, not all the black people, but a number of black people saw what was happening, saw this black man being beat up because they had him on the ground, stomping him and kicking him and punching him and stuff. In the video, there's this one black person who jumped in the river and swam across this, I don't know if he swam across the whole river or part of it, but he actually swam across the river to go onto the shore to where this brawl was happening to help out this black man who was being attacked by these white patrons. It just grew from that, and it became this big, black people versus white people and all this stuff. The cops got involved finally, and one of the things that shows in the video is that nobody really tried to stop this thing from happening. You didn't see a whole lot of that going on, and the part that as I'm watching this and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? Nobody is going to try to, it was like game on. It's like the Crips versus the Bloods, almost. One of those type of scenarios. And I made some comments about it that I'll talk about after I get your input.
Okay. Watching things like that, I have to just...
I know, right?
It's a lot. And two things came to me when I was watching it. First thing was like this innate human need for survival.
Yeah. And
then this innate human need of belonging.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's really interesting, like you said, that nobody broke it up. Like the simple, okay, let's all simmer down. It was more like, let's all, get in. And for me, it's a representation of, and this is like kind of a rabbit hole, but this is the representation of our nervous systems in society, right? Instead of our default mode being like, okay, let's calm everything down, our default mode is let's fight, or let's flight, like fight or flight, that high alert, stress, trauma response, that is the default mode here. Instead of, what the optimal reality would be is that most of humans are in that calm parasympathetic nervous system where our default mode is peace and calm and serenity. And so that was very evident, because that's and survival is an innate human need, right? The need to survive. That's everything is coming from that. And so that's one part of it. And then my other part is just heart aching, that's my other response is this heart aching, just this material matter world that we're looking at each other and we're seeing division because of the color of our skin, instead of we're all 99.99% the same. It's just the pigment or melanin in our skin that's creating these distortions, because that's what they are. They're distortions, and they're conditioning and programming that we've gone throughout time. And there are some realities, right? There are differences in different ethnic groups, that is for sure, but that heartfelt center, that's the missing piece, right? So we can acknowledge each other's differences, some things might work better for white people than they do for Black people. We can acknowledge those differences in that way, as long as we have that foundation of at the core of who we are all the same. And in my opinion, my belief system, we are all one. So the person that you're smacking and stomping is actually yourself. You are harming the it's a collective experience. And so, yeah, those are my two initial thoughts.
I'm going to read to you what I posted along with that video. I said, race relations have broken down into race wars due to, in part, lack of humanity. When we witness humans not treating other humans humanely, the results bear witness in videos like this. Seeing anyone be jumped by a majority of one ethnicity is troubling. There was no way that man was not going to be helped by others who looked like him, and vice versa. He absolutely needed aid from being overwhelmed by this attack, no matter what ethnicity aided him. Who wins? No one wins truly. Even though no one died, fortunately, there is a metaphysical death regarding the loss of respect for each other. Without self-control, we all, in caps, begin to live in fear, anger, anarchy, danger, division, etc. No one wins. All, in caps, of our children are learning more that, quote, divided we fall. Because, that's part of, the U.S. Creed, united we stand, divided we fall. Thankfully, no one introduced the firearm to this brawl. Because, I deal with that stuff as an active shooter, hospital event, violent critical incident consultant, stop the bleed, instructor trainer, as well as being a former paramedic and firefighter. Our challenge is, do we continue to be, quote, breaking news via these viral videos, or do we engage in conversations without conversation? And I got that, conversations without confrontation, from a friend of mine named Cassandra Mitchell, better known as Loyalty. Just one perspective. And you know how you can change, like when you post something on Facebook, you can add what feelings. And I had Larry Cougar Penton Sr. is feeling human, because I was very angry when I first saw it. And being a black man, seeing a black man get his ass kicked the way he was getting kicked, I felt that, hey, where's all the other black people? That was the first thing that popped in my head. Like when I saw that black man running down the ramp, and I saw that black young person swimming across the river, and somebody posted, y'all can't ever say black people don't know how to swim. So part of me fucking, like, I had the same reaction. I was like, whoever said black people can't swim, that shit is bullshit now. Because when I first saw the video, I was like, okay, somebody's fighting, but they had this red arrow pointing to the person in the water swimming. And I was like, is there like an alligator and shit? Like, I'm looking for like a shark or an alligator or something. And I'm like, oh no, he's going to help. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, just like, I'm floored. All of these emotions are coming out. And as I noticed that it became this big race brawl, I thought, damn, look at all the ancestral and generational trauma coming out. None of these people that are fighting probably know each other from a can of paint, but they're united in that ancestral and generational trauma. Black people, we have gotten our ass kicked for over 400 years by white people that were in control during slavery, and even post-slavery in the Jim Crow era to today. We're still getting our ass kicked in a lot of ways, whether it's in law enforcement or redlining or all kind of stuff or whatever. And it's like all this pent up, the political spectrum and all this stuff, all this pent up. That scene in that video made me think of a pressure cooker whose pressure release valve popped off. It was just, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
And I was like, where's the fucking humanity? I don't know what caused it. And I'm not saying that's not important. What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, no one wins. There's 8 billion of us on this planet and counting. And you've heard me say this before. If I needed a kidney, I need one human being that fits 2 criteria: a match and a willing donor. Any one of those white people that were in this brawl that would have fit those 2 categories could save my life if I needed a kidney. No matter what their gender is, no matter what their age is, if they fit those 2 categories, I'm going to make it. Doesn't matter that they're not black, they're not melanated, because they're humans. And I think that sometimes, and in a lot of times, and especially this climate that we're in, this fear resonates on both ethnicities from this ancestral and generational trauma. I'm going to pass the mic back over to you to further expound on this blunt, honest thoughts. Not just about this, but whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah, and I mean, what you said is true. Like the pressure cooker analogy is so real, and it's also contrived. Like, it's not just, oh, this is the ripple effect from slavery. Like, no, like the system has created this pressure cooker and then continues to add heat to it, however they want to do it. Mainstream media, emphasizing certain stories over others. Like, this is the result of the pressure cooker is the result of the system that we live in, and a lot of times, like on my social media and stuff, I talk about exiting the matrix, but the reality is you're not exiting the matrix and you're just gone forever from it. You can exit the matrix up here, but physically, you know, unless you're out in the mountains in the middle of nowhere secluded, you're still in the matrix, you know? Even just having an Instagram, you're still in the matrix. And so because we all, majority of us, right, are still in the matrix, even if it's just for a percentage of the time, we play a role in that pressure cooker. And so, you know, it's really interesting too, because there's so many things besides like the tension between white and blacks that has come from ancestral generational trauma throughout, you know, the time of us being enslaved, and then Jim Crow, and then now, and the school to prison pipeline, like all of it. There's so many things besides just that white black tension. And I actually, I'm going to throw this in here just to show you guys how expansive it is and how deep this trauma really goes. I have a 4-year-old dog, and his name is Rufus. He is the most kind, gentle, loving, big boy. He's, you know, 65 pounds, so he is larger. And this past weekend when we were at the festival, so the majority of people there were black. I'd say like 99% people were black. There were some Asians, Latinos, you know. But I went and sat down. There was a performer, and I went to go sit down with my dog and my son in the grass, you know, and we were just sitting there. And a lady didn't notice that we had just sat there. And when she turned and saw my dog, she had a really big reaction. And, you know, she was fine after she realized that he was just chill. But again, like, these are things, because what happened when we were running, trying to escape, who was chasing us first, right? It was dogs. Then it was men. But the dogs were the ones who were on our asses, who probably the ones who caught us first. So that trauma, that there's a lot of black people who are terrified of dogs. And of course, things could have happened in their current lifetime for that to, you know, to be there. However, I really do think it's rooted even further back, just from those experiences that our people, you know, had collectively, whether it was, you know, them trying to run away or just being, you know, maintained by the dogs when you're still there, right? So like telling you where to go, how to go, and if you're not going fast enough, then maybe they're nipping at your heels, you know, things like that. And so there's so many things that you can link back to that. And so I'm going to go there right now with food, because that's just been on my mind and my heart lately. Ancestral and generational trauma has also affected our health. And what I mean by that is, as slaves, as enslaved people, we were given scraps, right? Like, we were given slops, the same thing that the pigs were eating. And now, if you go into inner city communities, lower income communities, when you go to each little corner store, what's on the shelves? A bunch of shit, junk food, you know? It's all the processed foods, because they want us to stay sick. They don't want us to have the high quality foods. They make it cheap for us to get Takis and Cheetos and Doritos. They make it easy for us to get Kool-Aid. But then, you know, when we want clean water, where is it? When we want a salad, where is that? You know? And so that's, again, for me, linked to the ancestral and generational trauma. And then, of course, on the genetic level of that, because how we eat is affecting for women, our egg cells. How we eat as men affects your sperm cells. And so if that trace is in our DNA as we're reproducing and having children, of course they're going to, you know, and then they see it's also eating this, they're going to emulate that. And then that cycle gets passed on. And so it's almost like we talk about a lot in the psychology field and spirituality field, you know, just human behavior in general, about rewiring the brain. But with this, it's more like we have to rewire our palates, right? Because it still tastes good to us for the most part. You know, for me, maybe not so much anymore. I've been years since I've eaten like that, but it does taste good. We can all kind of collectively agree, yes, those things taste good, but it does us damage. But we've been conditioned to still want that. And then, of course, all the chemicals in it create this addictive pattern that keeps us coming back for more. So again, we're stuck in that cycle, in that system, and it comes back from us eating chitlins, which were the scraps that they gave the pig. You know, we're getting scrap food all the time, and that's just circling back. And of course now, you know, I've gone kind of deep into like this food realm with soul food and all that. Some of it is fine, right? Like some of it is fine. Greens, of course, collard greens. But if you don't know this is actually a really interesting fact, that we used to be given like one pot to cook in, and collards were the cheapest way for us to eat that. And so they would just put all of that in one big old pot, and, you know, Big Mama, whoever, would be churning it all day. And it's like, those things are good. You know, maybe the quality has changed and stuff like that, but we can actively, consciously, intentionally choose what we want to keep from our ancestors versus what we don't want to keep and that we know isn't going to benefit us in the long run. And of course, this big topic, like when I start talking like this, I have to always circle back to accessibility, right? Because I was privileged that my dad got out of the hood and he raised me in the suburbs and I was able to have access to these foods. And the majority of low-income families, literally, is almost impossible for them to get that high quality food unless it's given to them or, you know, chucked in, which is why learning how to grow your own food is self-responsibility, right? Because you don't have to have your 2 acres of land to grow your own food. You can get hydroponic systems that are indoor if you don't have a yard. You know, urban gardening is a real thing. If you just like hashtag urban gardening, urban agriculture, there are people who are doing this from the rooftops, from their balconies. You know, there's a lot of resources out there. And so, yeah, it might be hella expensive or hella far for you to go get that higher quality food. So maybe just think about what it would take for you to grow it yourself. Maybe come together with everybody in your apartment building or whatever and say, hey, we're all going to collectively grow this food. So not one person, you know, has to put all their money into it. But there are different ways that we can make these things a reality, even for low-income families. And I think the more we can unite together, the more we can find organizations that are already doing this work, the better. And so, yeah, the ancestral generational trauma can manifest and does manifest in so many ways.
I know that these conversations are very important to not only our race, they're important to people that, and when I say I shouldn't even say our race because we're all in the human race, our ethnicity, and we got to stop acting like we're in a different race. And so that's why I kind of hate when we bring up the race thing, because again, we're all humans. We're all part of the human race. However, that's where these divisions come into play with this ancestral and generational trauma, because it's about control, it's about power, it's about narcissism, it's about money. You know, money is the source, as you always hear me say. Just we can go on and on. I just wanted to pick your brain on some of these things because I know as an applied epigeneticist, and even more important as a humanitarian, these things are near and dear to your heart. From an epigenetic scientific point of view, before we let you go, what would you say to other epigeneticists about blunt, honest thoughts in regards to generational and ancestral trauma? Because we always talk about healing and coming up with plans of action. What say?
Other epigeneticists. Okay. So I think the first thing really is just to realize, like when it comes to blunt honesty, is that everything that you're going to share, whether it's with a client, a patient, a friend, family, whatever you're going to share as far as changing or helping support somebody who wants to change their lifestyle or change their habits, is that you can't do that if you are beating around the bush, you know, or it's going to just take them longer to get there if you're trying to beat around the bush. And so for me, like what I say with all my clients is like, you know, I lay it all on the table right up front. Like, this is how I am. This is how I talk. You know, if it gets uncomfortable, feel free to find somebody else to work with, you know, like that's just, you know, it is what it is. And I just work under the notion that whoever is meant to receive my message will receive it. And, you know, if you don't like my message, and just stay in your lane and and keep it moving. But yeah, it's just really important, you know, for anybody, like for any healer, for any friend, like you don't even have to work in this space, but blunt honesty is only going to create more opportunities for people to see things differently, versus if you're just going to tell them what they want to hear, you're then an enabler. And I will never be an enabler. I have been in my life, in my past, and I've seen the destruction or the...
Good. Does he have a Healy also?
He knows about the Healy.
He knows about it. Is there an age limit for that?
So there are different ways to use it, and then so the medical grade way with the wires, it's only for like 18 and up, but of course you can use it at your discretion. You just can't like you know. But yeah, this one, the Mag Healy actually has programs for children. There's the one like children playing, and there's family harmony. So I use that often with him, and just, you know, being nearby. So.
We're going to end with this short missing persons case that I found on the Charlie Project site, charlieproject.org. This young man, well, it's not a young guy anymore. His name is Guadalupe Acevedo. He has been missing since December 8th of 2004 from Grand Prairie, Texas. Classified as missing, sex male, race Hispanic, according to Charlie Project. So don't get on me. He was born December 13th of 53, so he's 69. He was 50 years old age when he was missing. Height and weight is 5'8", 150 pounds. Distinguishing characteristics: Hispanic male, gray hair, brown eyes. Acevedo may have a partial upper front denture plate replacing 4 teeth. Really limited details of his disappearance. So Acevedo was last seen in Grand Prairie, Texas on December 8, 2004. He has never been heard from again. Few details are available in this case. So if you have any information, good, bad, or ugly, or indifferent on the whereabouts of Guadalupe Acevedo, contact the Grand Prairie Police Department at 972-237-8790. Again, contact the Grand Prairie Police Department at 972-237-8790. There's 2 other sources that you can contact for more information about Guadalupe Acevedo, and that's the Texas Department of Public Safety and Nameless. Those links will be listed under the link that I'm going to post in the show note for the Charlie Project for this story. You all always hear me say, live in awareness, never live in fear. Make sure that you take a first aid CPR and stop the bleed course, because in the event of an emergency situation, I always say it's not a matter of if, but when an emergency is going to happen, or that includes a violent critical incident that we see in these breaking news stories. You need to be trained as an immediate responder, because until those threats or whatever that may keep first responders from getting on scene and making patient contact, you may be the only one that's there that can provide first responder type of interactions. We want you to be a bydoer and not a bystander. We show a lot of content that you're not going to see if you just listen to it. We want you to listen and tune in, but I recommend that you watch these interviews, because you're going to get more content than you would just listening to it. For Simone Nofel, from Nephews Chilling on the Screen, LP out.